What's happening, fellas? It's your boy Hardcorn, and today we're going to be reviewing the butler who could, Fuuma Tokiko. We'll see how she stacks up in various areas, and also if she's worth the gems at all. Tokiko is one of those long-awaited additions to Action Taimanin, and I'm glad she finally makes an appearance. She's the Fuuma family butler, and is not only caring, she can be serious when she needs to. More compassionate than Asagi for sure, but she knows how to whip them in line. Her ninja art is the Evil Eye series. Though it is often referred to as clairvoyance, by closing her eye she can do things like reading information from books, papers, and even computers without actually being there. Of course, its range is limited, but she can make do. She attacks with the kunai and is quite proficient at it, even going so far as to combine her kunai with her evil eye ability so that it will always hit her mark. That's how they justify the kunai homing in. Tokiko gets often compared to Asuka, mostly for the aspect of Asuka and Tokiko sharing an ability to change their attack damage from melee to ranged. Except Asuka gets it better off due to having a piercing property and a passive attack gain of 30%. Tokiko doesn't have piercing on her basic attack with ranged conversion. She now gets projectiles that travel about 7 to 8 meters and also alternate between bursts of 1 and 3. Different ways to accomplish the same thing, and that's to totally ream the enemies as the DPS machines they are. Tokiko though gets 2 playstyles in her setup, both though are for DPS. She has no healing at all, so it's something to consider on longer fights. However, if you are dealing damage faster than they can get to you, healing doesn't matter so much. I like my character's technical and durable, but she misses the mark on the durable part and is 100% about the technical. When I refer to her 2 playstyles, I'm talking about her 2 finisher attacks that she has access to. Hummingbird is a ranged attack that flanks her backwards a set distance while throwing kunai, and Autumn Wind flings her forward for a several hit attack. However, Autumn Wind is locked behind her being level 81, which is sad since it gives her nice buffs and also makes her into a more pure assault character rather than hit and run. Tokiko gets access to her own unique buff, Clairvoyance. It is stated as damage taken reduced and gains super armor for the duration of the buff. Percent damage reduction is nice, but the most powerful aspect is her gaining super armor. With her ranged art and finisher, having the armor doesn't mean very much. It no doubt helps to make sure she can deal damage and get her skills off though. If she's plinking away at range, enemies still have to meander on over. Clairvoyance is there mostly for her melee finisher and melee attack skills, so she can persevere through them. For the most part though, she's very versatile in a lot of situations and dishes damage like some of the best. However, she's held back by her base damage. Tokiko has poor base damage but high stats on her weapons. You better have some supplementary goods like high skill level supporters, or you get lucky with her weapons because she needs anything and everything to get jacked up. This leads her into a sort of chipping them down playstyle with hit and run tactics. You're not hitting hard, so you need to get real technical and combo centric. I'm just not a big fan of her basic attacks and skills having lower than average damage, because it's really underwhelming to see this big bombastic animation do very poor damage even though you've got her totally juiced. However, through adversity comes creativity. Tokiko has both ranged and melee, so she can actually use the melee damage and ranged damage supporters in any variety to get really strong really fast and give a large amount of flexibility in how she wants to approach things. Not only that, she can get very risky with her incredible speed and recovery. One of my favorite things about Tokiko is how fast she is. Her basic attacks are all extremely fast, and many skills happen quickly or can finish faster through recovery canceling with her finishers. Even after being struck, she still recovers quickly and can get out of the area with her very fast dodge. Being a knife fighter, she needs to get in close to do the most damage. This speed in her animations and attacks makes her feel really fluid and satisfying to weave in and out of the battlefield. I love it when characters get to do that, and it makes her really fun to play on all levels of content. I don't think anyone could say it better than Cygnus, the person who makes the Action Taimanin guide, about the sort of mentality required to make Tokiko work. To quote from the character guide, "In her current state, Tokiko is a character who needs to be piloted well to shine. There's no greater truth in that because she requires a degree of preparation and getting technical to offset that below average damage. Not only that, she's got 2 different finishers to use and weave into her strings. Also, that if you miss the timing for those finishers, you may be stuck with the skill's backflip recovery animation. It's a lot to wrangle, but she rewards those who are patient enough to get a grasp with her." Cygnus also has this very nice thing to say. When faced with a difficult encounter, if you're someone who panics and endlessly spams dash to the point that the boss isn't even on screen, then you may want to think twice about purchasing Tokiko. Tokiko does reward smart play and learning how your enemies work to create situations for her to do damage. Not only that, but you need to be smart in how your skills synergize together to actually take advantage of these attack windows. Running away with Tokiko is not a recommended strategy since it only leaves you able to use your basic attack if you have Magpie equipped, and nearly nothing if you're using melee. She wants to get in the fray, and you better be good at your timings and dodging to play her at her best. That's where the whole skill floor discrepancy comes in, since other Taimanins can do great things with lesser tact, and some others require more to get the same result. It shouldn't stop you from enjoying a character, but I can see where it would diverge those who want to put in the effort and those who don't. However, she's just quite average with some above average skills. One thing to note about Tokiko's skills is that many of them can inflict debuffs. That's something that really appeals to me because it evens the odds at low end content when you're leveling, and high end content when you're fighting strong enemies. Increased damage to debuff enemies has gotten more support as time goes on, so that playstyle can shine on Tokiko. Sadly, she doesn't have any damage over time ailments she can apply, well, you can't win them all that way. Tokiko also excels at making herself faster and also stunning people. And Tokiko is already extremely fast in mostly everything she does. In fact, it's somewhat redundant and barely helps out, though her being able to stun so much from her skills is fantastic crowd control. Low cooldowns on skills like Stone Piercer and Fan will make sure you'll be using them often to get Hummingbird or the Autumn Wind procs. On the flip side, some of her skills have very long cooldowns and may end up getting used sparingly even after a high investment in this cooldown skill training. I see them more as something to save for a big damage cascade like you activate Extreme Dodge Clairvoyance or supporter usage. Let's start off on the skills themselves with something small, like Soaring Swallow. It's another air combo move with a Helm Splitter finisher. Every character has this and it's usually one of the least desired skills on them. Almost always a dead slot except in cases like Kurenai or Murasaki where they have the attack resolve itself. Tokiko doesn't get that unfortunately, so you can mess it up and just leave her hanging in the air to get hit. It's just not worth taking. On the other hand, Stone Piercer is almost always worth taking. It's one of her cheapest skills to run since its effects are determined off of whatever your main supporter is. Main green giving more movement speed, blue giving the clairvoyance buff, and main red knocking down the enemy on hit. Not only that, it does a lot of damage on a very short cooldown. And don't let that stab fool you though, that whole blast in front of her is part of the skill itself, which means you can actually do a lot of area damage with this. It's a small area, but being able to hit more than one person with a sort of sniper skill like this is just the cherry on top. Tokiko also has a built-in dodge when this move finishes the attacking portion. It's not the fastest dodge, but it is usable to get in and out of a dangerous situation. But the speed of this dodge leaves a lot to be desired, so you can activate Hummingbird or Autumn Wind just after the attack portion, have Tokiko either dodge faster or have a fast follow-up attack. It's a really good gateway skill to lead into setups, and it reminds me of Noah in that aspect. Squall is her big blue skill. It's a medium-sized AoE attack with a base 16-second cooldown. The skill activates very quickly and is good to use on situations where you use either finisher, though it morely is on the melee finisher since the ranged one flinks her away from the target, making you walk back to use it within range. Though you can use it in many more situations besides that, it's a wonderful wake-up tool as you can take a hit and hold down the dodge button, and the first frame she can act again, she'll do the skill. If she's getting struck by melee or just totally ganged up on, it'll hit them for great damage and allow you to get out. Since it activates off the dodge button, you can use it in just about any portion of her basic attack string. Just attack as far as you want into the combo, and then hold the button down and Squall will activate. Very easy burst DPS. With setting just even one blue supporter, using this move grants her access to the clairvoyance buff. It only lasting 4 seconds makes it very brief, but allows it for her to succeed in her ability to get out her damage and not get knocked out of a skill or her basic attack chain, making it very beneficial to do something like activate Stone Piercer with a blue main to get clairvoyance, use Autumn Wind, hold dodge to activate Squall, and then activate Autumn Wind again. It won't get interrupted, that's for sure, with all that super armor behind her. You should take this whenever you can because it also has incredibly high base damage inside. Using it totally naked, perfectly fine. Evil Eye Clairvoyance is Tokiko's extreme dodge. On activation, she lowers the defense of all enemies in the area, and also grants her an unlisted buff of being able to shoot one kunai every second. With a 2-color supporter requirement, it can fit in many builds. Green is a 50% increase to the defense down, blue increases the kunai's damage by 50%, and red increases the skill's duration by 50%. They're all pretty great abilities, which makes it pretty desirable to take this. It's not without its shortcomings though. It shoots one single kunai per second. This kunai doesn't do a lot of damage either, since it feels very underwhelming to see it just shoot one for all that pomp and circumstance. Of course, you're taking the skill for the defense down, but the auxiliary effect could be something much more. Hummingbird shoots off 3 per activation, why not make that the baseline for Evil Eye? While this is a good skill, Tokiko can actually live without it. It's a really nice 4th slot if you have the Heavy Sheikah package, because it lets you slot in damage skills and then a defense down to make them that much stronger. Personally, I just don't take it at all, since I have Narakuzan, a weapon that gives stacking defense down on hit, so I just take all the damage skills I can and just tap them a few times. Smashing Spree is the big green Hulk out skill for Tokiko. At a base 20 seconds, it's a very long cooldown, and even after max skill training, it's 14 seconds. In dailies, you may not see this skill very often, but in longer fights you will. The skill rolls between medium and high damage on strikes during the attack, so it comes out with mixed damage and mixed reception. It's one of those attacks you really can't take by itself because it's so strong. It really needs as many greens as possible to make it effective. 1 green giving the attack increased speed means you can fit more strikes inside of a damage window, 2 greens gives another series of attacks, and 3 greens increases the damage by 150%. It really needs that 150% more damage. The skill also homes in onto targets, and if that target dies, she instantly switches to the next one. There's no need to aim it. However, once she starts it, she will not stop until she gets knocked out of it, you use a finisher, or it completes. It's a very long attack, so using a finisher to cancel out of it midway is desirable. You get a throwing Vajra on there, and if you have the Tokiko supporter, it can actually start doing a very huge amount of damage. There are better skills for her, but if you have the supporters and weapons to make it reach its full potential, be my guest. Blast is her trap skill. Trap skills are not very good in general, since it's the antithesis of the game itself. On activation, it throws 3 kunai mines at a small area in front of Tokiko. If you have 3 of the same type of supporter equipped, it increases the kunai from 3 to 5. Each of these traps does a lot of damage on hit, and each color gives a very powerful buff or debuff when the enemy walks over the mines. Greens is a 30% defense down, blue is a 20% slow, and red knocks up on hit. All very good, but the fact of the matter is that you still have to take the skill. You can't dodge 2 times in a row, because that's how you activate the skill. Tokiko just stops dead in her tracks and throws them down daintily and hops back. You can obviously use the finishers to cancel out of the back hop, but you've still got to deal with the slow activation speed. It can be a pretty cool emergency attack, as Tokiko can activate it right away when an enemy is in her face, and it'll eat 1 to possibly 3 kunai. It'll rip off their armor, and if you have a red set, she'll knock them into the air so she can get away. This is a very niche strategy, and sees no real use outside of having fun, much like this skill. Now her real deal Taimanin art, Magpie. Its most notable attribute is having a physical to range conversion, going so far as to change her attack animation completely. With this equipped, Tokiko's basic attack shoots kunai in waves of 1 to 3 until she reaches the end of the combo. Magpie doesn't pierce, and the projectiles disappear after about 7 meters. Tokiko's attack also no longer chases enemies. She will stand completely still until the combo is done, compared to Asuka, where it is just her regular basic attack string, only changed to a range conversion with piercing projectiles, meaning Asuka can still chase. The most disappointing thing of all is that Magpie only increases her attack speed. Tokiko does not need the extra attack speed since she's already so fast. She really needs that 30% increase to her base damage that some of the other girls get. The notion of saying that the existence of skills like Autumn Wind and Hummingbird make up for the damage is ridiculous. Other characters are able to get finishers like that, and the attack damage increase. These finishers are your reward for learning the timings on the skill and whether or not to use them. Tokiko shouldn't get lower damage since she has both of them. Though as time has gone on, I see one possible way for the justification of attack speed rather than attack boosting. Ranged characters in melee situations can usually just keep kiting until a threat is removed. Giving a fast character the ability to hold still and become a turret with increased damage and the ability to kite is a strong setup. A way to keep it from happening so often is to make the character weaker so that the battle takes longer. To compare Asuka and Tokiko again, Asuka has chasing on her attacks, so she is forcibly taken towards danger regardless of her range status. She gets the attack bonus but is offset by being dragged into a dangerous scenario. Tokiko gets to hold still and use her fast attack speed to repeatedly pelt enemies from a distance, and she can just neutral hop away because she stood there the entire time and has probably done less damage. This is a strange justification for such a decision to make her have a 15% speed increase instead of damage, but it's something I really visualized playing both characters. The better move would have been for Tokiko to have the 30% attack boost any day of the week. Now probably my favorite skill for Tokiko, Fan. Fan is a simple attack dealing alright damage. Without any boosts, it throws 5 projectiles in front of her that pierce through enemies. That alone makes the skill really nice for clearing packs. Though with some investment, it gets to be something really good. 1 red makes the attack give an attack down debuff. Granted, it's only 10%, but it still is a debuff on a weakened enemy. 2 reds makes it so that the kunai no longer pierce, however they have the ability to home in on enemies. Meaning you can throw this from one corner of the battlefield and not worry about it missing. 3 reds increases the attack's critical rate by a whopping 50%. With a boost like that, it means that most of your projectiles are going to crit, and that Tokiko can chip away people from a good distance. Fan is also one of her shortest cooldowns. At a base 12 seconds and then with max skill training, it comes down to 8.4 seconds. You'll be seeing this skill a lot, and it's one of the best to activate her finishers off of, especially Hummingbird. With a throwing Vajra equipped, Tokiko can just turn into a missile battery and spam this move in Hummingbird all the time and do great damage. Fan is just a nice safety tool and clearing ability, and I just love it so much. It's not exactly a high damage nuker like Squall that you can take by itself, but it's still worth taking. With that, we go into the first of her 2 finishers. Hummingbird starts us off, and it's her ranged one. Like most other finishers, this is activated off of a prompt that you get when a skill exits the damage phase, or you're at the end of your basic attack combo. You press dodge when the big green light comes up, and Tokiko will jump backwards a large distance while throwing 3 kunai. The skill itself is Tokiko's best escape and can be used off of everything she has. Benefits her defensively and also acts offensively with that kunai to inflicting debuffs. Requiring 2 supporters to gain any sort of effect, it allows for it to fit in any build. Green gives a slow debuff to enemies that are hit, blue gives her a defense buff, and red stuns targets. All of these are very good, especially the green one, since it gives a very effective slow for 10 seconds. This skill has a 3-second cooldown and can be activated off of all her skills and basic attack, so it effectively can be permanently applied if you're on the ball regarding activation. The stun that also comes from red is incredibly powerful at emptying armor bars and enemies with no armor at all, keeps them stunned. With how many routes of activation she has, she can keep a group held down no problem at all. Very effective crowd control solutions inside the skill. Though that blue defense buff is nothing to shrug off either, it lasts much longer than the skill has cooldown, so she can stay knuckled up for a very long time. This finisher also allows her to manually end Smashing Spree at any point and dodge away. I feel it's the better finisher to use in conjunction with Smashing Spree, since it lets her get out of what possibly could be a dangerous situation if you try to milk Smashing Spree for longer. While Hummingbird is her ranged finisher, Autumn Wind is her melee one. It deals alright damage and sends her forward about a meter when it's activated, so it's really good to use after some of her up close and personal skills. Hummingbird strives to be an escape and control option, while Autumn Wind strives for pure assault in its passives. Green giving her an attack speed buff is very nice to boost her DPS, yet it's redundant due to how fast she already is. Blue giving Clairvoyance on a 3-second cooldown can potentially mean she can maintain a 90 to 100% uptime with that buff. Very helpful in making sure she can consistently keep getting the buff off and not get interrupted. Red makes the attack's critical hit rate go up by a whole 50%, so you can really get in some nice damage out of this if all the hits crit. Unfortunately, this skill is all the way behind her being level 81. It's a skill worth getting for sure, since it really rounds out her playstyle by balancing out the back-facing jump that Hummingbird has with the forward-facing strikes of Autumn Wind. Gives you the freedom of either being a more defensive or offensive with your finishers. Without her at 81, you're stuck with Hummingbird, and constantly dodging backwards when you really want to get in there for the last few hits. This finisher can also manually end Smashing Spree. If you see several enemies encroaching on your position during Smashing Spree, you can forcibly end it and have Autumn Wind's 360 spin catch those who are trying to mess you up. This is a very good skill that's worth your time and effort to get to. To conclude, Tokiko is a very average character. She's incredibly fast in all of her attacks, and they all have great chasing and tracking, though that's offset by the mediocre damage output. Why she can't have the damage bonus instead of attack speed bonus on her Taimanin art is something beyond my understanding, which makes getting any sort of supporter that gives flat damage or boosts critical rate one of the most desired, since it can really jack up her hampered damage. It takes a degree of tact and calculated risks to play her, which raises the skill floor a bit. Tokiko can get in and out of danger with her skills and fast dodges, so it really benefits a more aggressive playstyle. Running away doesn't work for her, even on her ranged build, due to most of her skills that give buffs happen within melee range. This sort of thinking and tech planning is something I really enjoy with the character. Juggling their cooldowns and planning windows so I can get around something that is really cumbersome or annoying to use, much like Tokiko's low damage or when she's in ranged mode. She shares that sort of sense with Ingrid, due to Ingrid having that awful basic attack chain but very low cooldown and powerful skills. Ingrid gets the benefit of having the highest base attack in the game, so it sort of balances out there. I would have preferred her not having a trap skill, since it's 100% a dead slot in most cases, but it could have use in a niche setup. Though, is she worth the gems? Yes, to a certain extent. If you can see that your playstyle will work with her setup, then go for it. However, she also needs some stats very badly. So after you get some 5/5 SRs or higher skill level URs, or you want to commit arena coins to her weapon, then do it. She'd be like a 3rd or 4th pick for me if I were going to save up and get other characters first. But if that big old butt of hers and that One-san personality is what gets you going, then be my guest and go get her. Just make sure you're ready for what comes next. Oh lord, it wasn't that something. Thanks for coming on out and learning with your boy Hardcorn. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Leave a comment too, because I'd love to hear from you guys and maybe get some ideas from where to go next. And as always, I'll see you next time.